When you think pirate, chances are one image springs to mind. Long black beard, maybe smoking, fuses woven into it, pistols everywhere. Blackbeard.
He's definitely the archetype, isn't he? The ultimate pirate image.
But how much of that picture is actually real? That's the fascinating part.
Absolutely. It's where myth and history get really tangled up.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're going through the historical records, trying to piece together the real story of Edward Teach, or Thatch, or however you spell it.
Better known as Blackbeard, yeah. And a lot of what we think we know comes from one key source, right? Captain Charles Johnson's A General History of the Pirates.
Published in 1724. Super influential, but maybe not always strictly factual.
Well, it's the foundation. But yes, Johnson liked a good story. We have to keep that in mind.
Okay, so setting the scene. We're in the Caribbean, roughly late 1600s, early 1700s, the so-called golden age of piracy.
A chaotic time. End of wars, lots of sailors out of work, lots of ships moving around. Prime conditions for piracy.
So our mission here is to track Blackbeard's journey, from his murky beginnings to that very dramatic end.
And try to separate the documented facts from the, let's say, later embellishments.
Exactly. Okay, let's start at the start, his early life. What do we actually know about Edward Teach before he was Blackbeard?
Honestly, not a huge amount. The general consensus points to Bristol, England. Born around 1680, maybe?
But even the name, Teach, seems common, but I've seen Thatch, That.
Right. Spelling wasn't exactly standardized back then, so you see variations like Thatch, Thack. Teach is the one that mostly stuck.
And before full-on piracy, there's this idea he was a privateer for the British. What did that actually mean? It sounds a bit like legal piracy.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to put it, yeah. During wartime, the government would give commissions, basically licenses, to private ships.
To attack enemy ships.
Exactly. Attack and capture enemy merchant ships. It was a way to bolster the Navy without the full cost. Sanctioned raiding, essentially.
And when the wars ended?
Well, you had all these experienced sailors, captains with armed ships, and suddenly no legal outlet for those skills. Or maybe the taste for that life.
So the shift to illegal piracy wasn't such a huge leap for some.
To many, it was the logical next step, unfortunately. Or perhaps opportunistically.
Which brings us to Captain Benjamin Hornigold, a big name in the early pirate scene.
A very significant figure. He was active from around 1713, a leader in the sort of pirate haven in the Bahamas, the Republic of Pirates.
And Teach served under him, like an apprenticeship in piracy.
You could say that. He learned the ropes under Hornigold, and he must have been good at it.
How so?
Because by about 1716, Hornigold gave him command of his own captured ship. He clearly saw potential, or maybe just competence, in Teach.
Okay, and then there's the almost unbelievable story of Stede Bonnet, the gentleman pirate.
Ah, yes, Bonnet, a wealthy landowner from Barbados.
Yeah.
Absolutely zero sailing experience.
Just decides one day to become a pirate, buys a ship.
Buys a ship, names it the Revenge, hires a crew. It's quite bizarre. He sailed alongside Hornigold and Teach for a bit.
But Teach wasn't overly impressed with his piratical abilities.
According to Johnson's account, not at all. Apparently, Blackbeard basically told Bonnet he wasn't cut out for command.
And suggested Bonnet just relax on Blackbeard's ship while Teach took over the Revenge.
Pretty much, it shows Blackbeard's, well, assertiveness and ambition pretty early on.
Right. So now he's got command experience and soon a truly legendary ship, the Queen Anne's Revenge.
Yes. Originally a French slave ship, La Concorde, Blackbeard captured her in November 1717.
Renamed her, obviously,
And
armed her to the teeth.
heavily armed. Reports say up to 40 cannons.
40. That's immense firepower for the time, a floating fortress.
Absolutely terrifying for anyone they encountered. It gave him a huge advantage. With that ship, he really started terrorizing the West Indies and the American coast.
His crew grew quite large, too.
Estimates go up to around 300 men at the peak. A formidable force. They captured a lot of ships, accumulated significant wealth, well, goods mostly.
Okay, let's talk about the image, because that's maybe the most famous part. Johnson's description is vivid.
It really is. He paints him as something straight out of hell, deliberately frightening.
The beard, obviously,
Yeah.
long, black, bushy, but the details, plated, tied with ribbons.
And potentially, according to Johnson, with lit, slow-burning fuses tucked into it before battle.
Fuses, like cannon fuses, smoldering in his beard.
Imagine seeing that coming towards you. Smoke wreathing his face.
Yeah.
Pure psychological terror.
Along with, multiple pairs of pistols slung across his chest, cutlasses, knives.
A walking arsenal. The whole point, most likely, was intimidation.
To make victims surrender without a fight.
Exactly. Avoid the risk and bloodshed if possible. Get the prize through fear alone. Psychological warfare.
So behind this terrifying facade, what was life like in his crew? Who were these guys?
A real mix, actually. You had experienced former privateers, sailors captured from other ships who chose to join.
Or were forced to join.
Sometimes forced, sometimes they saw it as a better option. You also had men from lower social classes looking for, well, a different kind of life.
And notably, a significant number of black men in his crew.
Yes, that's an important point often missed. Some sources suggest black men might have been the majority at one point. It shows the complex, maybe even surprisingly diverse nature of these pirate crews outside mainstream society.
Fascinating. And was it just total anarchy, or were there rules?
Definitely not total anarchy. Like most pirate crews, they operated under articles, a code, agreed upon rules for dividing loot, maintaining discipline.
So Blackbeard reportedly followed these pirate codes, shared the spoils, according to the agreement.
Generally, yes. That was crucial for keeping a large crew together and relatively loyal. You had to be seen as fair by their standards.
And they had their own flag, right? The classic skull and crossbones wasn't the only one.
Blackbeard's was different. A black flag, yes, but with a horned skeleton.
Doing what?
Spearing a bleeding heart with one hand and holding an hourglass in the other.
Subtle. Death, violence, time running out. Got it.
A very clear message to anyone who saw it.
Okay, myths versus reality check. Johnson claims Blackbeard had, 14 wives. Any truth to that?
That number, 14, comes straight from Johnson's history. But actual historical records, they only document one legal marriage.
So probably another bit of exaggeration to build the legend.
Highly likely, yes. Sensationalism sells.
And the buried treasure. Chests of gold doubloons on deserted islands. X marks the spot.
Mostly myth. Pirates captured valuable stuff, absolutely, but it was usually trade goods.
Things like spices, sugar, silks, wine, stuff they could actually sell or trade easily.
Exactly. Practical goods were far more common than chests overflowing with gold coins. Burying heavy treasure and finding it again secretly. It's more trouble than it's worth, usually. They wanted a quick turnover.
Makes sense. Okay, so Blackbeard wasn't just about the scary look. He pulled off some incredibly bold moves, like the Charleston blockade in 1718.
Oh, that was audacious. May 1718, he sailed his fleet right up to Charleston, South Carolina, and blockaded the port.
Just stopped all ships coming in or out.
Pretty much. Captured several vessels, took hostages, including some prominent local citizens.
And his ransom demand wasn't gold.
No, famously, he demanded a chest of medicines.
Medicines? Why?
Probably needed supplies for his crew, treating illness, injuries. It highlights the practical concerns even for pirates. Syphilis was rampant, for example.
Did the town pay up?
They did. They scrambled to get the medicines, Blackbeard released the hostages, and sailed off. It really showed the vulnerability of these colonial ports.
A real power move. But shortly after that, disaster strikes his flagship. The Queen Anne's Revenge runs aground.
Yes, in June 1718, just weeks later, in Beaufort Inlet, North Carolina, the Queen Anne's Revenge and another ship, the Adventure, hit a sandbar and were badly damaged, eventually abandoned.
Was it just bad luck? Bad navigation?
That's the big question. It's still debated. Could have been an accident in treacherous waters.
Or something else. I've heard theories it might have been deliberate.
That's the other main theory, that Blackbeard intentionally grounded the ships.
Why would he do that? Wreck his own flagship?
Possibly to downsize his crew. Fewer men means a bigger share of the loot for those who remained. Maybe get rid of troublesome crew members, consolidate his trusted followers, and the best plunder onto a smaller vessel.
Marooning part of his crew, essentially, along with the ships.
That's the suspicion. It's impossible to know for sure, but it fits his ruthless reputation.
And incredibly, we might actually have the wreck of the Queen Anne's Revenge now.
Yes. Since 1996, archaeologists have been excavating a wreck in Beaufort Inlet that is widely believed, almost certainly, to be the Queen Anne's Revenge.
What have they found?
Over 400,000 artifacts. Cannons, anchors, personal items, parts of the ship. It's an amazing window into that world. Direct physical evidence.
Just incredible. Okay, so after this incident, Blackbeard does something surprising. He accepts a pardon.
Right. The British Crown was offering pardons to pirates who'd give up the life, an attempt to clear the seas.
So Blackbeard goes to North Carolina, meets Governor Charles Eden, and takes the king's pardon. Settles down.
He accepted the pardon, yes. And for a short time, it seemed like he might actually retire. He even got married, the one documented legal marriage we mentioned.
But it didn't stick, did it?
Didn't last long at all. He was soon back to his old ways.
So the pardon was just strategic, a temporary measure.
It looks that way, and Johnson's account adds another layer. He suggests Blackbeard struck up a cozy, corrupt deal with Governor Eden.
Corrupt how? Like the governor looked the other way, maybe took a cut.
That's the allegation, that Eden allowed Blackbeard to continue operating, perhaps even fencing stolen goods through the colony in exchange for bribes or a share. Again, it's Johnson's claim, but it highlights the difficulties authorities faced.
Wow. If true, that's quite the arrangement. But this return to piracy eventually seals his fate, right? Governor Spotswood of Virginia gets involved.
Yes. Governor Alexander Spotswood wasn't happy.
Yeah.
He felt Eden wasn't dealing with a Blackbeard problem, maybe was even complicit. So Spotswood decided to take matters into his own hands.
It put out a bounty.
A significant one. 100 pounds for Blackbeard, dead or alive. And he secretly organized an expedition to hunt him down.
Without telling North Carolina authorities.
Exactly. He commissioned Lieutenant Robert Maynard of the Royal Navy, gave him 2 civilian sloops, the Jane and the Ranger, and sent him to find Blackbeard.
And Maynard found him. Ocracoke Inlet, November 1718.
That's right, November 21st. Maynard caught Blackbeard anchored in the shallow inlet. It wasn't going to be an easy fight in those waters.
Maynard launched a surprise attack.
With dawn, he tried to trap Blackbeard. It turned into a desperate close-quarters battle. Maynard's sloops ran aground, and Blackbeard's men boarded them.
Fierce fighting, hand-to-hand.
Extremely fierce. Maynard and Blackbeard apparently fought each other directly on the deck.
And Blackbeard finally went down.
He did, but only after taking incredible punishment. Accounts say he suffered multiple sword cuts, maybe 20 or more, and at least 5 gunshot wounds before he finally fell.
A brutal end. And Maynard made absolutely sure everyone knew Blackbeard was dead.
No doubt about it. He had Blackbeard decapitated.
Decapitated?
Yes, and then hung the severed head from the bowsprit of his sloop, the Jane, as proof.
Grim. What happened to the rest of the crew?
About 12 other pirates were killed in the fight. The survivors, around 13, I think, were captured, taken to Williamsburg, Virginia, tried, and hanged.
And the head, was it just displayed on the ship?
No, after Maynard returned, the head was mounted on a pole at the entrance to Chesapeake Bay, a gruesome warning to other pirates for years.
There's even a legend about his skull being used as a drinking cup later.
That's a popular, though likely apocryphal legend. Adds to the macabre folklore.
But we do have Maynard's own account, right? His logbook.
We do. Lieutenant Maynard's log provides a contemporary record of the battle, confirming the key elements and his intention to present the head as proof. It's a crucial primary source.
So a relatively short career, maybe only 2 years as a leading pirate captain.
A most, yeah.
But his impact, his legend, it's immense. How did it grow so large?
Johnson's general history is a huge part of it. That book basically created the template for the literary pirate.
Influencing famous fictional pirates.
Absolutely. Think of Captain Hook and Peter Panbury. Apparently based him partly on Blackbeard lore, saying Hook was Blackbeard's bosun. And Israel Hands, a real member of Blackbeard's crew, is a character in Stevenson's Treasure Island.
And he just keeps appearing everywhere, doesn't he? Movies, TV, video games.
He's inescapable. Pirates of the Caribbean, One Piece, Black Sails, Our Flag Means Death, Assassin's Creed. He's the pirate icon.
Why the enduring fascination, do you think?
It's that mix, isn't it? The terrifying image, the bold actions, the dramatic death. He represents rebellion, freedom from rules. Even if it was a violent, brutal freedom, it taps into something.
David Cordingley and John Falconer made that point, didn't they? About the short career versus the huge fame?
Yes, in Pirates, Fact and Fiction. They highlight how, despite maybe only 2 years at the top, he created this larger-than-life reputation that outshines many pirates who are active for much longer. Image and story are powerful.
And if you listening want to dig deeper, there are places to go. Museums, books.
Definitely. The National Maritime Museum often has great resources. And the Royal Museum's Greenwich website covers the whole Golden Age, plus other amazing figures like Anne Bonny, Mary Read, even the Chinese pirate queen Xing Yi Sao.
So much more to explore there. Okay, wrapping this up. Key takeaways from our deep dive on Blackbeard.
While he was real, Edward Teach existed. His terrifying image was partly real and partly deliberate performance. His actions, like the Charleston blockade and his final battle, are documented.
But the legend took over.
Amplified massively by Johnson's book and everything that followed. So you have this core of historical fact wrapped in layers of myth and storytelling. He was brutal, audacious, and died violently. That combination cemented his place in history, despite the short timeline.
It really makes you think about how history gets written and remembered. Why him? Why does this particular story, this blend of fact and fiction, resonate so strongly?
Exactly. What is it about these figures on the fringes, these rebels, that captures our imagination? It says something about us, maybe. And it makes you wonder, who else is out there? What other historical figures have similar stories where the legend might overshadow or distort the reality? Definitely something to mull over.